by the time I was about 10 years old. I was doing black diamond and double black diamond in the early 20s. I was a competitive wakeboarder. I was kind of that guy that could run up a wall and do a backflip. Very physically fit, and that all changed. I broke my neck at the age of 23. I had a girlfriend at the time. I was just about ready to start a job in advertising at the radio stations in Seattle and had just bought a truck, and it seemed like, you know, life was taking me in one direction and it was a hard left turn. I remember lots of times like just being in tears in the middle of the night with my mom, just wanting a break. I think it took about 6 years before I would, really come up for air, not really engaging in life myself. That started to change right around 2009. Had I been hurt in the 80s, I would have got 6 months to a year, and I would probably have met more people with spinal cord injuries. I hated the idea that some 10-year-old might go down a jump after watching the Olympics thinking that they can do the same thing. Have similar negligence contribute to someone else's injuries.
今天的故事来自一个真正经历过生命坠落的人 Kenny Salvini。 2004年一次高难度滑雪事故让他从肩膀以下完全瘫痪。从那一刻开始，身边其他人的人生都继续往前走，只有他的世界被迫按下了暂停键。事故前 Kenny 是运动员水平的摔跤和滑雪爱好者，事故后他成了没有行动能力的婴儿。他形容自己像掉进了一个看不见底的深渊。事故后的6年时间里，他几乎没有出过自己的房间。绝望、疼痛、自责和身份重塑，每一刻都是挑战。与此同时，外界的误解和评论也让他承受了额外的压力。人们不了解全貌，却急于下结论。这一集让我们回到2004到2009那最黑暗的6年，去看看他到底经历了什么，以及他是如何撑下来，不被黑暗吞没的。What was your college and what do you
I went to Central Washington University, where I got a degree in electronics engineering technology, minors in math and computer science, and I also wrestled there when I was a student. So
Cool. What do your parents do?
My dad is a retired elevator mechanic, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but also did a bunch of side jobs as well.
Kenny, can you walk us through the journey from despair to your new life?
Ooh, man. Yeah, that's a long one. I grew up kind of your prototypical all-American guy. I was an athlete. I played soccer and baseball growing up, and I got into wrestling when I was about 12. And that took me all the way to through high school and into college, where I wrestled in college. And very physically active young man. Learned how to snow ski when I was about 3 years old with my family. We were big into water sports and snow sports, and so I was doing kind of the really steep runs on the mountains by the time I was about 10 years old. I was doing black diamond and double black diamond, anything I could find. A real adrenaline junkie by the time I reached my teenage and even early 20s. I was a competitive wakeboarder, so I was kind of that guy that could run up a wall and do a backflip, and very, very physically fit. And that all changed in February of 2004. I was about 8 months out of college, and I had gotten back into snow skiing after taking a bunch of time off for wrestling. And that's when the terrain parks had gotten really big, kind of like the X Games, where it had really big jumps. And I was going down the hill one day, and I hit one of the jumps going too fast, and wound up overshooting the landing by about 60 feet, and I fell about 40 feet onto my head. So I broke my neck at C3-4, so it's like the third vertebrae down from the base of your skull. I broke a couple other vertebrae in my back, and then I broke my right femur as well. And I woke up on the mountain, within seconds of impact, and I looked up, and pretty much the amount of function you see today is what I had in that moment. And I knew right away that life had changed in a drastic way. Yeah, so I'm what they classify as a C3-4 complete quadriplegic. So I've got no arm function. All I can do is shrug my shoulders. I actually drive this wheelchair with my head. Yeah, and so as you can imagine, you go from a relatively elite athlete at the age of 23 to basically less function than a 6-month-old. I did rehab at Good Samaritan Hospital here in Puyallup after a stint of in the intensive care unit up at Harborview.
How long did you stay in the hospital?
Yeah, I got about 17 days in the ICU, in the intensive care unit. But then I think I transferred from Harborview to Good Sam Rehab on March 1st, and I think they discharged me May 18th, so just under 3 months of rehab. If I'd been hurt 20 years prior, I might have gotten 6 months to a year. But with the way their insurance has changed, people's rehab stays are getting shorter and shorter. And now, I get to visit people in the hospital today that might get days and weeks. So someone my level might get 3 to 4 weeks in rehab, where I got close to 3 months. It's not a good thing. When I visit people now, I remember those early days when you're sitting in the hospital and the doctors come in kind of like a SWAT team or a military operation, where they come in and they're speaking a language you don't understand about a C3-4 quadriplegic with Asia A injury. Yeah, it was a lot to take in. And at the time, when you first wake up with a spinal cord injury, you're too busy trying to reconnect your fingers and toes to your brain. It's hard to hear what most of those people are saying and to really take it all in. I remember having a lot of my physical therapists and occupational therapists. They were trying to teach us stuff, but there's just not enough time to prepare you for how to move forward. Had I been hurt in the 80s, I would have got 6 months to a year, and I would probably have met more people with spinal cord injuries.
Right.
I had a peer support mentor in the hospital. He was a fantastic man by the name of Dick Sage. He was hurt in 1970 when he was 19 years old, but he had a little bit more function than me. So he was able to drive a car on his own. Really? He could scratch his face and do all these things that I wished I could do.
Hand and foot can...
No, he had just enough arm function. His fingers don't work, so he's probably a C5-6 injury. So if I'm injured between the 3rd and 4th vertebrae, just 2 vertebrae down makes a world of difference. Right. It doesn't give you any kind of hand strength, but you have just enough to be able to move your deltoids and biceps so that you can drive a car with hand controls. I didn't really take much of his guidance in because I was too busy. I was too stuck in my own head, thinking about the things I'd lost. And they airlifted me to Harborview, where they fused my neck with surgery and a couple other surgeries. And they sent me home with kind of a shrug. They just said, well, this is all the rehab you get, and the cure might come in 5 or so years. So it was kind of a hurry up and wait kind of situation. And I got home and I struggled. Big time. I was fortunate that my family brought me home, even though doctors said they shouldn't, because the doctors asked my parents when I was up at Harborview, where are you taking him after this? And my parents said home, and the doctors said, oh, they don't go home. Just because the complexity of the care that comes with quadriplegia, there's bowel management, there's bladder management, skin issues that all arise. And it can be a lot to take on, especially for family. Both my folks were in their early 50s right when I got hurt. But I was lucky that my dad had built our home fairly accessible as it was. And so they brought me home. And that was when the struggle really started. It felt like kind of the world was moving on without me. All my friends were graduating college, getting married, having kids, all those things. And
their lives move on.
Yeah, their lives were moving on, and mine was not. I started to really struggle with some of those downstream side effects of spinal cord injury. So I'd get bladder infections, pressure sores. I got one set of pressure sores within about 6 months after my injury.
What is a pressure sore?
Yeah, so pressure sores can happen when you sit on one area of the body for too long. And what happens, you'll see, everybody's kind of familiar when people cross their legs, and when they uncross them, there's kind of a red spot there. Well, what's happening there is you are depriving the tissue of oxygen, and it turns red because the blood is kind of rushing back to that area. Well, when you can't feel your backside, you don't know that you're doing that. And if you sit in one position long enough, it actually kills the tissue. And so that tissue is basically dead and necrotic, and you either have to wait for it to expel itself naturally, or you can have surgeries to remove the skin to get back to healthy tissue in order to heal. And the first sores kept me in bed for about a year, and then about 2 years after that, I got another sore that kept me in bed for about 2.5 years. I didn't feel like there was much out there in the world for me. Right when I came home,
I remember you wrote like you were in a black hole or something.
Very deep, dark hole. Yeah,
You feel desperate, or?
Absolutely. There was, there's a lot of questioning God and the universe, and why me? A lot of regret. You spend, at least for me, the early months and years, you try to retrace every step that took you to that place. Yeah. And you kind of
blame yourself.
Oh, for sure.
That.
Yeah. A lot of self-blame, and a lot of despair. Like you said, it was, a lot of tears, a lot of frustration. I remember lots of times like just being in tears in the middle of the night with my mom, and just wanting a break from this experience. My mom, at least initially after the injury, she had to sleep standing out, like outside my door, because I'd call her every 30 seconds because something on my face itched, or I was too hot or too cold, or I was just sad. And whenever I talk to people about it now, like it's a physical injury, but I always say it's a mental, emotional, and spiritual crisis as well. Yeah. It's just a big identity crisis when so much of your body is your kind of main source of your identity. Right. Especially as a young man. I had a girlfriend at the time. I was just about ready to start a job in advertising at the radio stations in Seattle, and had just bought a truck, and it seemed like, life was taking me in one direction, and it was a hard left turn, and I just couldn't see a world out, I couldn't see a place for me out there. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So just curious, the girlfriend, did she just left because of the accident, or?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, I was way too hard on her. And she was 22 when I got hurt. I was 23, barely, almost turning 24, and we're just kids, and we'd only been together 6 months at that time. I was pushing her away, wanting more for her, but also clinging to her at the same time. And it made it just kind of impossible for her to kind of try to keep me afloat, because I was really in a negative space. Yeah. And pretty angry and frustrated and sad, and she tried her best. She absolutely, was really cheerful and super optimistic and positive, but that the darkness in me was just too much.
Overwhelming.
Yeah, it was overwhelming, and it was not fair to her to kind of put all my eggs in her basket, like she was the one that was supposed to fix me, because my recovery had to come from the inside of me, not through someone else. True. Yeah. And so she left after about 6 months. We kept in sporadic contact, but and I dabbled in relationships, online dating, with not much success afterwards. it was just it was a long road. But then things started to change about 2009 after, I think it took about 6 years before I would, really come up for air. I'd say, most of the times I'd leave, I'd just go to my doctor's appointments and nowhere else. And I largely stayed in bed even, I spent a lot of time in bed because it was a lot of watching TV. One of the things that kind of helped me in the meantime is I started a blog that went kind of mini viral about a year after I got injured, and that led to some kind of interesting doors opening with Microsoft, and but still, it was largely me kind of at home, living vicariously through friends, family, but not really engaging in life myself. But that started to change right around 2009. We had kind of looked into the circumstances for my injury, and we had found some negligence on the case of the ski mountain, that they knew injuries were happening on my jump, and they didn't really do anything to address it. And so we went forward with a lawsuit and ended up winning a pretty substantial judgment, which was a bit of an identity crisis too, because on the one hand I thought it was just me having the problem, but then to find out that there was some negligence that went into it, it was vindicating to an extent, but I also got a lot of hate mail through my blog from young skiers and snowboarders who were scared their sport was going to get taken away.
Why do they think so?
There was a knee-jerk reaction right after the lawsuit that a few parks all over the country closed down. Well, mostly to protect themselves from further lawsuits. You can find it on the internet. There's a whole 15-page forum of these snowboarders and stuff kind of giving me hate mail. But then after I laid out the facts of the case to people, they recognized that it was pretty egregious, the negligence that had gone on. And that kind of got me re-engaged in the litigation process.
What makes the breakthrough? You win the case?
Pulled out some of the statistics of the injuries that happened on the jump where I was hurt.
On the same year or throughout?
They looked at a snapshot of the 3 years prior to my injury, and there was about 25 injuries like mine in the 3 years prior, but in the 3 months of 2004, there were about 60 injuries, all in that same spot. And they didn't do anything to address it. And at least for my family and I, we went through with it because 9 days after I got hurt, a 19-year-old kid died going off a jump that was just the one above mine. So it was we knew something was wrong, but we weren't sure. So that kind of discovery around the lawsuit to find, that kind of negligence. And then when I laid that out to everybody that was sending me hate mail, they were like, oh, I had no idea.
Some people just misunderstood the case and they thought you were just after money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then there's that famous case of the McDonald's coffee that gets spilt on a lady and gave her, that burned her, and everybody misunderstands that case because they think it was just some lady that just spilled her coffee. But then when you dig through the facts of that case, the reality was that McDonald's knew that they were brewing their coffee too hot in order to sell more money. So they could make it a scalding temperature and it would actually affect profits. And it wound up giving this, older woman third-degree burns all over her torso. And so it's, there's that myth of, it's not really a myth, but there's the kind of notion of ambulance chasing lawyers that are like, oh, you fell down and, I can get you money. But, when you dig into the facts of some of these cases where there's actual negligence, everybody I've talked to, when you lay out the facts of the case, they're like, oh, I had no idea.
Right.
So
many people don't have any details of the facts, but like they just heard parts of it and then they judge.
you know, it's
hard.
It is, and you know, part of that was kind of a preview of our you know, the knee-jerk culture that now persists. That, you know, we get very little information, but we make big judgments. And yeah, so it was interesting, you know, kind of dynamic to experience that as well. So,
but do you feel angry or anything about this misunderstanding?
I think I did in the beginning. I think it was more just shocked. External reaction. I just wasn't prepared for it. But at the same time, I understood, you know, because, you know, I didn't harbor too much resentment, because it's like, well, yeah, if you don't know the facts, then I would probably say the same thing. And now I've, you know, years later, I've made peace with it, because, you know, there was a bit of that, am I ruining the sport I loved kind of thing? And, but no, it was, you know, the intention was more like, you know, I want to prevent the next person from getting injured. Well, and just like I hated the idea that, you know, some 10-year-old might go down a jump after watching, you know, the Olympics, thinking that, you know, they can do the same thing.
Right.
And have similar negligence contribute to someone else's injury. So, yeah.